week, and as you know, everyone is running around. And what we're going to do is we have the honor of being with Thilmeeza Hussain, and she needs to get back into work with her offices. So we are going to start a conversation with Phil, who then needs to go back to work. And then by then, our speakers who are late and trying to get here through the traffic, we'll start with them. So we're being very creative. So I'd like to, is the live stream started? Great, okay, thank you. So this is, if we can't manage these kinds of activities, we definitely can't handle the climate crisis. So I think we can adjust to the urgency of today and getting through all the traffic that is happening right now during the UN General Assembly and Climate Week. My name is Osprey Orielle Lake, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of the Women's Earth and Climate Action Network. And it's really an honor to have you all here today. And I'm going to do another round of introductions when the panelists show up who are struggling to get here. But right now, I am so honored to sit with a dear, dear friend and colleague. We've known each other for many years now. Thilmeeza Hussain, who is the permanent representative to the United Nations and ambassador to the United States from the Maldives. And I'm just so glad that you could be with us today. And I know you only have a little bit before you need to return to your work. But I'd love to hear from you, as we are heading towards COP27 and using this week to organize what you can share with us from the Maldives. I've been told you have to hold these microphones really close. So.
Okay. Can you hear me well? Yes, great. Thank you so much, Osprey. First of all, a very good evening, and I'm so glad to be back here with the WECAN community, long-time friends. I've been coming to WECAN events. I've been actually fortunate to be a part of WECAN events since you founded the organization in 2013, Osprey, and I am so thrilled to see how far WECAN has come and what an important role WECAN is playing in bringing the voices from the grassroots communities to the mainstream so that people actually listen to stories about what is happening to people on ground because of climate change, and especially from a gender perspective. So thank you, Osprey, for the amazing work that you are doing. So my name is Thilmeeza, and I am from the Maldives. As many of you know, Maldives is a small island nation. We are about 1,200 islands stretched across in the Indian Ocean, and we are the flattest country in the world. The highest point in the Maldives is a little bit taller than me. That's the tallest mountain, which is just 6 feet above sea level. And so it is a beautiful country with white sandy beaches, turquoise blue lagoons, lush green trees. We have beautiful coral reefs for snorkeling and diving. And people in the Maldives, we have been living in our country in harmony with nature for thousands of years. And today we are at cross juncture because we are also one of the most vulnerable countries in the world. Vulnerable to the extreme events, vulnerable to climate change, and we are an unwilling participant, as you can say, to the impacts of climate change, because we are having to live through the impacts of climate change. And as you know, I don't have to go into the details of what the IPCC has been saying, what the scientific community has been saying, that we have had the 7 hottest years in the last decade, and the impacts that we are seeing around the globe, from floods to hurricanes to forest fires, and most greatly for our country, it is the El Ninos, which is bleaching the coral reefs. So in the Maldives, you're already seeing almost 60% of bleaching in 100% of our reefs. So if you go back, when I was a kid, when I went diving or snorkeling, I could see the colors of the corals, the beautiful fishes, and it's very vibrant. But when you go back to the same reefs, now the colors are all gone, and a lot of reefs are dead. As you know, High Level Week is going on at the UN across the street, and we've been in meetings. Maldives as a country, my foreign minister has been in bilateral meetings with a lot of other foreign ministers, and some of the foreign ministers we met actually from the Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia and the Foreign Minister of Monaco. They said they've actually been to Maldives and they've been going for the past 10 years, and the first time that they went, they saw the beautiful colors and coral of the reefs, and they went back last year and it's gone. And it was, for us, we knew that this was happening, but it's also, I felt like now people around the world are also recognizing that this is actually happening. And for us, when coral reefs are not just reefs that are beautiful, that we go snorkeling, but that's also the lifeblood of our economy, and also the first security line, first defense line, shoreline protection. So we are seeing, when the coral reefs are dead, we are also seeing inundation of sea waves, king tides more frequently happening. Last month there was, as my foreign minister would say, we saw ocean decided just to swell up and come into the islands. Yeah. Essentially what had happened was there was king tides, and about 20 islands got flooded, and these are tiny islands, and it was flooded for 2 days until the waves decided to recede. So, and it destroyed everything in those islands. So we are seeing the impacts of climate change up close and very personal in our islands in the Maldives. And as you know, Osprey's WECAN has started, the impacts of climate change has accelerated. It has not gotten any better. And around the world, as you know, that we are breaking these heat records, but there was also a report that came out very recently that said in the next 30 years, the sea level would rise greater than it has in the last 100 years. What does that mean? It means that for small island states like ours, if we don't do anything on climate change, we wouldn't be able to survive and we wouldn't be able to live on these islands. And climate change is not just, I would say climate change is a human rights issue. It's a human rights issue because it is an issue that is tied to our very survival. It is tied to live a dignified life, to be able to live a dignified life in our own islands. And that's one of the reasons why Maldives, along with a group of countries, advocated in the UN. In June, we passed a resolution saying that climate change is a human rights issue and we have a right to a safe, healthy, and a clean environment. And this is a landmark resolution that was passed in the General Assembly, and we should be advocating for this more. Why it is important to address climate change from a human rights perspective, to be able to live a dignified life. And if we cannot ensure a dignified life for our children, what is the purpose of living? What is the purpose of everything that we do, right? So I think for our countries who have been unwilling participants of this climate disaster that we have, emergency that we have created, we need the support of the entire global community to come together to be able to accelerate efforts to combat climate change. And looking ahead at COP27, I think this is going to be very important because when we are going to COP27, we need to push and advocate to accelerate climate financing, not just for mitigation but also for adaptation, because climate change is happening right now and our islands, we need to spend a lot of money to adapt and to be able to live right now as well as while we prepare for the future. And globally, the amount of money that we are spending on everything else is so much when compared to what we spend on climate change. And I know wars are happening around the world, so many other things are happening, But while those things are happening and our attention is diverted to all these issues, climate change is not taking a pause and saying, okay, let's just wait while we resolve all other global conflicts and then we'll come back to addressing climate change. That doesn't happen. So we need to continuously make sure that while we are also addressing other issues, climate change is also on the forefront. We are spending only about $6 billion to address climate change or like mitigation, adaptation, on climate finance. But guess how much we're spending on war? We're spending $1.7 trillion on war. That's like tremendously greater than how much we are spending on climate change. But climate change is also existential for many of us, and for countries like ours, we may be at the forefront, as we say, we're the canary in the coal mine, but it's going to impact everyone else as well. So with that, I will pause. Osprey, and thank you for having me here and giving me the opportunity to speak to everyone and be with you.
Well, thank you so much, Phil, for dropping in a very busy week where these decisions are being made and your voice being heard. I just wanted to highlight, that one of the reasons that so many organizations are framing their work around what we call climate justice is specifically because of what you said, Phil, which is we really cannot separate out the environment from human rights, and we need to have a holistic approach. And so climate justice is about centering the actual impacts on frontline communities, frontline countries. And so I want us all to keep that in mind when we think about what it is that we're really working to resolve. Who are we working to resolve it for? And also the discrepancies and the inequities that exist between the global south and the global north. And this is a perfect example of ensuring that we don't forget the Maldives and other communities that will go underwater. And it is an existential crisis, and I think that when we're talking about these issues, it's very, very important that we don't think about it just in terms of numbers and carbon emission reductions, which is very important, but we're talking about entire worlds ending. We're talking about the fact that it's the end of the world for some people, and that is not what we can accept. We find that to be a red line, and we say no to that. And we stand with you, and we always will, and we are going to the COP, and we are advocating, and we are demanding from governments and financial institutions that the ambitious goals have got to be increased, especially because of these human rights issues. So I know that you need to get back. You let me know. I won't keep you any longer, and I really appreciate you stopping by, Phil, and it's wonderful to see you, and we'll continue our conversation.
Thank you, Osprey, and thank you once again for having me here, and it's lovely to be back with the WECAN family. Before I leave, one thing I also want to add is about future generations, right? We're talking about protection of future generations, but let's also not forget, if we cannot protect the present generations, we cannot protect the future generations. And for countries like mine, we're talking about in the next 30 years, that's in my son's lifetime. He's 10 years old today. And so it's in the lifetime of our children that we as a country may not be able to exist if we don't accelerate our efforts. So thank you, Osprey. Thank you for the amazing work you're doing, and thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Such an honor. Thank you, Phil.